Once again, Shabbat Shalom. I'm grateful to stand before you on this Shabbat that has been marred by the pain of the attacks in Amsterdam, by the yahrzeit of the Kristallnacht pogrom of 1938. This is also the Shabbat that anticipates Veterans Day, so we're coming up on a holiday weekend when themes of national service and sacrifice naturally come to mind. My remarks tonight, however, are mostly a response to the election. I formatted these remarks because it works so well for me on Rosh Hashanah in the form of a letter. Of course, for my Rosh Hashanah sermon, I had a whole year to write it, and this one 72 hours. But this is a letter to my nephew, Samson. It's really nice that my sister and brother-in-law are here. Samson and his dad, I understand, are traveling upstate right now, but I actually sent the letter when I finished the sermon at 5:48. I'm happy to share it with all of us. Dear Samson, I wouldn't blame you if you'd rather think about sports or music or video games or even school, anything but the election of 2024. And still, I hope you'll indulge these few words from your uncle. 2024 is the last time you will be a bystander to a presidential election. Today, you are a sophomore at Mamaroneck High School. In November 2028, you will presumably be a sophomore in college. I also voted in my first presidential election my sophomore year, in 1992. And I remember how thrilling it felt to participate directly in the project of American democracy. It still thrills, whatever the outcome. I'm excited for you to experience this in just a few years. Between now and then, I hope you will give serious thought to what it means to be an American Jew, and how you will grow into this identity, because that is who will cast his vote in 2028. I believe it is an extraordinary privilege to be an American Jew. It is a heritage that came to you, not by choice, but which you must now affirm for yourself. This is the essential promise you made a little over 2 years ago when you spoke about Jewish adulthood, maturity, responsibility, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, Tyler and Zoe, but all the stuff every bar and bat mitzvah says, but which tends to remain a promise only partially fulfilled until later in life, if ever. In any case, if the history of human adolescent development is any indication, I feel confident that the next 4 years will prove formative for how you will choose to show up as a grown-up in a reeling world. I'm writing this letter to you the week of Parshat Lech Lecha, so naturally I seek guidance in these words of Torah. Our portion revolves around the figure of Abraham, his journeys, his family, his adventures and trials. Mostly, though, this is a parsha about self-discovery, character formation, and moral courage. God's first words to Abraham are Lech Lecha, which give the portion its title. Idiomatically, we translate Lech Lecha, go forth, but the rabbis read these words literally, Lech, go, Lecha, unto yourself. God sent Abraham off to discover a new land, a new religion, a new people, yes, but also to discover Abraham. After self-discovery, everything else would follow. You too are entering an age of self-discovery. With adolescence comes the realization that not every adult can be trusted or believed, not every authority should be followed. Politicians, professors, parents, and even well-meaning uncles who happen to be rabbis may have their own interests and agendas that are not in line with your emerging moral sensibilities, values, and priorities. I am not recommending dismissing these voices out of hand because in the main I like to think that the grown-ups in your life do have your best interests at heart. but increasingly, you'll have to decide for yourself what is best. And as you do, as you make your own introspective Lech Lecha journey, I hope you will center your heritage as an American Jew in your emerging character as a source of moral courage. I hope you will invest time and thought and effort to study our history, tradition, and moral priorities, which anchor our experience as American Jews. I hope you will internalize that your Jewish heritage is not an old scroll to be dusted off and paraded around for ceremonial purposes, but rather an Etz Chaim, a living tree of immense beauty, wisdom, and spiritual nourishment. I hope you will remember that you are part of a people whose story runs 3,000 years deep, as wide as the globe, and whose roots are planted in the soil of Eretz Yisrael, our biblical homeland, which for all its difficulties and dilemmas is still home to half of your global Jewish family, whose destiny is inextricably bound up with your own, and whose thriving as a vital, secure, and democratic Jewish state, essential to the Jewish future, is up to us. And as a sidebar that's not in my letter, I will be leaving on an interfaith clergy mission to Israel tomorrow night with 6 rabbis, including our own former associate rabbi, Rabbi Reeser, and 6 wonderful non-Jewish clergy colleagues from across Westchester County. And I hope, Samson, that you will remember that your American Jewish heritage has allowed your Judaism to thrive here in a country founded on the precept of religious freedom for all. Your American Jewish heritage confirms that immigration is a source of national strength and pride. Your ancestors, all of my great-grandparents, came here because to be a Jew in Russia at the turn of the 20th century was either a dead end or a death sentence. They came here to escape anti-Semitic mistreatment, violence, and pogroms, the likes of which, unfortunately, we see repeating themselves in our time. Your great-grandfather, my Pop-Pop Aki, he was Grammy's father, fought with the 1st Marines as a combat medic in Iwo Jima and Okinawa, believing rightly that there was no dissonance between being a devoted Jew and a patriotic American, no matter one's political party. Your family continues to demonstrate that civic engagement is a Jewish value. Aunt Kelly spent all of Election Day as a poll worker, her small contribution toward ensuring the free and fair elections that stand as the cornerstone of American democracy. She told me Tuesday night how moving it was to see parents taking their kids to vote, how proudly a number of first-time voters, some of them advanced in age, cast their ballots. She heard tons of different languages, saw people of every skin color and cultural background, each bringing their own distinctive voices and values to their votes. You, Samson, are an American Jew with values rooted in these symbiotic identities. I hope you remember that when we talk about our values, especially as proud American Reform Jews, we mean all of the following in no particular order: honoring the dignity of every human being, protecting the rights of the disenfranchised, whether of women to bodily and reproductive autonomy, or of refugees to safety and opportunity, or of the poor to health care, or of minorities to equal treatment under the law. Recognizing the centrality of Israel to Jews and Judaism. Combating the ever-metastasizing evil of anti-Semitism, whether here or abroad, whether it comes from anti-Israel activists on the left or white nationalists on the right. Protecting our precious environment and natural resources. Providing tzedakah for the needy, curbing gun violence to save lives, cultivating our education and critical reasoning, laboring for the greater good, living and loving beyond ourselves and our narrow self-interest. If I had to boil my list down to one line, I'd choose a precept from Pirkei Avot, an almost 2,000-year-old collection of Jewish wisdom. Bamakom she'en anashim mishtadel lihiot ish. In a place where no one is a mensch, be a mensch. Still, the way I see it, we Jews ought not be one-issue voters, because Judaism is not a one-issue way of life. Of course, what we may choose to emphasize from a long list of authentic Jewish values remains a personal choice. But there is no single best or overriding Jewish value or priority. We should never be demeaned for how we vote or for which political party we favor, so long as we act with Jewish thoughtfulness and integrity. I know, Samson, that to you 4 years must seem like really, really far away. There are 1,000 math lessons and English essays and standardized tests to get through, a permit and a license, college visits and applications, prom and graduation, shows to perform, baseball stadiums to visit, destinations far and wide to explore. I learned just this Sunday that taking out the trash has been added to your roster of household responsibilities. So I would not wish to overwhelm you with too many other grown-up headaches. Unfortunately for you, and for all of us, the world is an overwhelming place. And often the only grown-up choice is to keep striding into the maelstrom, or at least down to the curb. Abraham's first journey, the journey of introspection, leads to his next journey, the journey for the rest of his life, which is a journey of moral courage. The ancient rabbis explained this by way of a parable. An ordinary person, they said, was going about his business, traveling from one place to another, when he noticed a castle in flames. And he exclaimed, "Why is no one doing anything? How can it be that there is no one to look after this palace?" Just then a voice called out from the highest parapet, the highest balcony, already engulfed in the inferno, crying out, "I am the owner of the palace." At that moment, the Midrash goes, God selected this ordinary person, Abraham by name, to begin the story of the Jewish people. The rabbis found that Abraham merited leadership because he saw the fire. Why is this happening, he asked. Why is no one doing anything? What makes Abraham special in the imagination of the rabbis is that he could see things not only for what they are, but for the way they could be. Sir Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory, who was the chief rabbi of Great Britain, explains, Judaism begins not in wonder that the world is, but in protest that the world is not as it ought to be. It is in that sacred discontent that Abraham's journey begins. Sacred discontent is what I wish for you, dear nephew. In the coming days and months and years, you will have to wade through endless streams of comments by and about our president-elect. What he said, what he did, what he posted online. I often think, by the way, that you are the smartest member of our family for your comprehensive disengagement with all social media. With that said, this torrent of rhetoric will be unavoidable, and you will have to figure out what it all means to you. You will have to learn how to tune out much of it without excusing the worst of it, particularly the coarse and demeaning language reserved for women, minorities, immigrants, foreigners, people with disabilities like your younger siblings, Jakey and Shira, people who identify as LGBTQIA, political opponents, and the most vulnerable in society. You will have to remember that in those places, wherever they have been, where hateful speech is permitted to flourish while truth-telling books are banned, where irrational conspiracy theories are amplified while science is shunned, where policies that promote liberty are suppressed while autocratic impulses are indulged, we Jews have never fared well. There will be times when you feel powerless to make a difference. I know I often do. These are turbulent and precarious times, and I do not know any better than anyone what will happen with Israel, Ukraine, Russia, Gaza, Lebanon, Iran, China, Saudi Arabia, NATO, or North Korea over these next 4 years, or what our fractured country will do with all its festering bile and clattering discord. Personally, Samson, I wish each of our political parties and their leaders would take a big, long Lech Lecha journey of introspection, character reformation, and moral courage. But as for our journeys, Abraham inspires us not only to hope and pray for a better tomorrow, but also to work for it, which is simply another way of saying that we should plan to show up as Jews in the world at a time when the world needs us. You, me, and all of us. Most of all, Samson, you will have to remember that to be an American Jew is not only an extraordinary responsibility, but also an extraordinary opportunity to journey deep within and emerge with Abrahamic character, morally courageous, and never too content. May God bless you, and all of us too. Your Uncle John. Shabbat Shalom.